Therefore, as a result of this quick questionnaire that we've just conducted, we're facing a huge problem in that our children and families, they live a parallel world, you can say, and they live in their own bubble. Even though the family may be religious and the father and mother may be religious, they have their own room, their own devices, electronic devices, which they use to access the internet. And the internet, as you know, is full of evil and full of snake pits, if we can put it that way, and full of the Satans, the shayateen of humans and jinn, who Allah described them. They plot in an extremely big way. And Allah described their plotting. From that plotting, whole mountains can be removed. So therefore, we cannot underestimate the danger that we are facing in not following and not knowing what our children are doing on the internet. So let us look at the third question, which is how. How are we supposed to deal with this issue? And so that we may be safe and our families may be safe, because there's a huge bombardment, as we said, an attack on the integrity of religious thought, especially Islamic religious thought. And if we are truly servants and slaves of Allah, respected brothers, we must be upset when the religion of Allah is being threatened. And therefore it must be the most important thing in relation to us, because Allah described those who have believed as loving Allah more than anything. So denying the existence of Allah is a huge issue and huge problem, and it's a terrible crime. And look what Allah said about those who attribute a child to Allah. Allah said, and they say, the most merciful, Ar-Rahman, has taken for himself a son. And Allah said, you have done an atrocious thing, extremely great. The heavens almost rupture, and the earth splits open, and the mountains collapse in devastation, that they attribute a son to Ar-Rahman. And it is not appropriate for Ar-Rahman that he should take a son. And therefore that's what Allah said in relation to attributing a son to Allah. What do you think about denying the existence of Allah? And that, of course, does it not deserve our attention? Should we not be concerned? Should we not fear? Even if we assume that we are safe from this problem, we should still be upset because someone denies the existence of Allah. And what do you think if we are in danger of being consumed? Because we have seen people from religious good families that their children actually followed the thought of the modern atheism. And what do you think when we have this, the danger of the internet, the information technology and information exchange that we have nowadays? The danger is extremely close to our homes and closer than we think. Let us have a quick example in terms of diseases and epidemics. If we have an infectious disease that spreads very quickly, and we have an epidemic outbreak, and we have out of millions and millions of citizens of a certain country and people who live there, 1 or 2 cases of a disease that is extremely infectious and spreads very quickly. That government or the government of that particular region or country would mobilize everything in their power to protect their population. They would set up quarantines and health programs and everything necessary in order to eradicate that issue from their locality or their country. And especially if that illness is infectious and it spreads very quickly. And what do you think? And this, of course, is to do with the illnesses of the bodies, physical illnesses. What do you think if it's to do with our religious beliefs and religious practice? Doesn't it deserve more attention than that? So how should we deal with this, and how should we save ourselves and our families? First of all, we must feel 2 things. The first is the danger of the present situation, and secondly, the trust and the responsibility that we have in front of Allah for ourselves and our families. The Prophet ﷺ said that each one of you is a shepherd, and each one of you will be asked about his flock. Now, so when we deal with this issue, we have two parts. The first is the treatment, you can call it, and the second is the prevention. So let us first have a look at the treatment. When we know of someone who is affected by this, we must also make a distinction between a person who's been affected by the doubts of this particular ideology and a person who is obsessed with some thought. Someone who is obsessed and he has a psychological problem, he should be directed to remember Allah much and to also try and seek refuge with Allah from this, and to also consult medical professionals for him to get appropriate help. The second point to bear in mind when we know of someone who has been affected, especially the youth, we must open our hearts and our minds and our houses and give enough time and sacrifice our efforts to try and be nice to them and feel them welcome. Then we should try and attempt to actually solve the problem and treat the illness. One of the greatest mistakes is to actually, when the person is in trouble, to try and make them quiet and not concern ourselves with them, and to say, leave these issues, why are you asking about this, why are you so persistent, and this kind of approach is not going to work. Why? Because we have the internet. If you're not going to answer them and show them that you care, they will go on the net and they will try to find the answer there, as has preceded in the pits of snakes. Therefore, we must be ready to embrace them, and we must be ready to listen to them, and we must be ready with our answers that must be based on knowledge and understanding. Therefore, this cannot be achieved except if the connection that you have with your children and your family is extremely strong. So we must try and achieve the level of friendship with our children and family, that they're able to come to us at any point in time and they consider us their friends and their close family, so that they're able to share these issues with us. And as you know very well, bringing up children these days is extremely challenging and difficult, and they must be able to find in you someone with whom they can share their thoughts and open up with. And if you are the rock that's going to be behind them, and the rock that's going to break their doubts and calm them and show them care, then you will be successful. But if they find that there is an obstacle between you and them, in fact they will not even tell you what they're going through. They will not tell you that they may be thinking of something or being affected by something, and you will be thinking that everything is as it should be, and you will be busy with your work and with your career, with other things to do with the dunya, and something will be going on with your children and family that you will not know, and you will find it out when it may be too late. The third factor in dealing with this issue is that the person who wants to answer and solve the problem and answer the doubtful matters must be of certain level of knowledge and understanding, and he must have the necessary qualifications, meaning in knowledge and understanding, in order to refute this doubt. Why? Because there may be certain premises given before actually people start talking about the actual problem. So those premises may be from physics, from biology, from other sciences, and if the person doesn't understand them, then the fact that he is weak in his presentation and answer will show the other person that his religion is weak. Therefore, if you have the necessary knowledge and understanding, then you can actually do this job with your family. If not, then you must try and give them to go to someone else who is knowledgeable in these issues, or to say to them, if it's someone who's been affected with atheism, to say to them that you want to postpone the meeting and you have an excuse and you want to look it up, you don't have to say it, but you look it up yourself and then you come and refute it. And there was a case when a young man came to the Sheikh and said that he actually went into atheism, and then alhamdulillah, by the mercy of Allah, and then through the Sheikh he came back. And one of the problems he faced was that he used to go to imams of mosques whom he used to think knowledgeable, and they wouldn't be able to answer some of the issues that he had. And that actually increased him in thinking that his religion didn't have answers. And that increased him in his problem. And that forced him and pushed him to go more and more into atheism until he found himself an atheist. But alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, he returned to the fold of Islam, and due to the fact that he found someone who was able to answer these issues. Also, a very important factor is that we must increase our efforts in distributing and translating the huge amount of material that has been authored and written in actually going against and explaining atheism and its flaws. And we have centers dedicated to this, and those who speak Arabic, of course, they can directly understand those leaflets and books, but those who do not speak Arabic, they need the translations, which must be done by people who are qualified. Now, let us now have a look very briefly at the second part of dealing with this problem, and that is preventing it. And this is much more important than the first one, which is how to treat it, how we can prevent our children and families from, in the first place, falling into the trap of atheism. And of course, we believe that this is and shall remain an ideology alien to Islam, alhamdulillah, and we believe and we trust Allah to help us against it. But we must do certain things, and we must put certain, you can say, means of protection against it in relation to our families. First of all, we must dedicate ourselves before anyone else time and effort to study the Book of Allah and to think about it and understand it and act upon it, and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And Allah said in the Quran, and how can you disbelieve when the ayat, the signs of Allah, are recited upon you, and His messenger is among you, and whoever tries to hold on to Allah, he shall be guided to the straight path. And the Prophet ﷺ said, as it is in Sahih Muslim, that I have left among you something which you, if you follow and hold on to it, you will never be misguided, the Book of Allah. And in the collection of Imam Daraqutni, he said the Book of Allah and my Sunnah. So it's extremely important.